The girl in chains. The air was always cold in the lower mines. Even the lights above flickered like they wanted to die. Valari hung from the wall again, her wrists tied high above her head, her feet barely touching the ground. Her body was thin, her back covered in old scars. Some were fresh. Blood still ran from one. She didn't cry anymore. She had no tears left. For 15 years, this was her life. Hung and whipped. 5 days a week, sometimes more. The cruel alien baron said it made her strong, but everyone knew it was just for his sick pleasure. Valari was not born in chains. She used to have a family, a small planet, a name that meant something. But after her people lost the war, the baron took her as a prize. She was only a girl then. Now she was a woman, but still a slave. The guards didn't speak to her. They only laughed when she screamed. The other workers, aliens of different species, never dared look at her. She was called Thing or It. To them, she wasn't alive anymore. She was a warning. But that morning, someone new arrived. A human man. He wore clean boots and a dark coat with a badge. His name was Daniel Cole. He was sent by the Galactic Safety Authority to check the mines, or at least that's what the Baron told everyone. But Daniel's eyes, they looked different. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't scared either. He looked calm, but sad. Valari didn't lift her head when he walked past. But he stopped. Just for a second. He looked at her. Really looked at her. A guard shouted, "Don't mind that one. She's half dead anyway. Decoration for the wall." Daniel said nothing. He walked on. But his eyes had already seen too much. That night, after the mines went quiet and the lights dimmed, Valari heard soft footsteps near the punishment wall. She didn't open her eyes. It was probably a rat, or worse, a bored guard. But something soft touched her lips. Bread. Real bread. Her eyes opened. There, on the floor, was a piece of food wrapped in cloth. Still warm. She blinked. Then a whisper came. A male voice. "If you want to live, nod tomorrow." She froze. Was this real? The footsteps left. She was alone again. Her stomach growled. But she didn't eat right away. Maybe it was poisoned. Or maybe this was hope. Hope was dangerous here. It got people killed. The next morning, during the roll call, Valari stood with the other slaves. She was shaking, weak. But her eyes searched the line. He was there. Daniel Cole, standing near a control panel, pretending to read numbers. Their eyes met, very slowly. Valari nodded. Just once. Daniel's face didn't change, but he saw her. That day, the guards whipped her again. She didn't scream, not even once, because now she had something more powerful than pain, a chance. Later, Daniel sat alone in his quarters. His hands were tight in fists. He had seen many things, broken machines, crushed bodies, dangerous tunnels, but nothing had shaken him like the girl on the wall. He had read the reports, prisoners, hard labor, punishments. But this was no punishment. This was torture. 15 years. 15 years of being whipped and hung like an animal. And yet, she nodded. She wanted to live. Daniel didn't know why yet, but something inside him had changed. He opened a small bag and took out a data pad. "Operation Rescue," he whispered. The mission had begun. Meanwhile, Valari sat alone in the dark, her piece of bread hidden under her blanket. She had taken small bites slowly. Tears came down her face for the first time in years. Not from pain, but from something she had forgotten even existed. Kindness. A stranger had looked at her and didn't see a slave. He saw a girl worth saving, and for the first time in 15 years, Valari believed she might not die here, not in chains, not like this. Daniel Cole walked through the prison mine like a ghost among shadows. Most workers didn't look at him. Some didn't even know what a human looked like. He was quiet, calm, and always watching. The guards joked that he was soft. The Baron thought he was harmless. But Valari had seen something else in his eyes, something the others missed. He was not like them. He returned the next day standing near the control board as the slaves lined up for roll call. Valari was among them, her arms trembling from the whipping but her back straight. She had not eaten all the bread, she had saved a piece. She didn't want to waste kindness. She looked for him, and there he was. He didn't smile, didn't wave. But he was looking at her, just for a moment. That was enough. Daniel had started asking questions, not loud ones, careful ones. How long had the punishment wall been used? Were the whips legal on this moon? Were any records kept? The guards rolled their eyes and gave lazy answers. No one took him seriously. But Daniel was listening. He had already started building a map in his head, where the cameras were, which keys the guards used, how long the shifts lasted. He wasn't just a visitor, he was a hunter. That night Valari was in her corner cell, cold stone walls and nothing but rags. She didn't sleep. Her body wouldn't let her. Then she heard a soft sound. Metal. A thin door slid open in the wall. She froze. From the shadows a figure stepped inside. She was ready to scream, but stopped. It was him. Daniel. He knelt in front of her, holding a small silver bottle and a folded cloth. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. She didn't move. He opened the bottle and poured warm water on the cloth. Then slowly, gently, he reached forward and wiped the blood from her face. She flinched but didn't stop him. No one had touched her kindly in years. "Your name?" he asked. Her lips moved. Nothing came out at first. He waited. Then she whispered, "Valari." He smiled just a little. "Valari," he repeated like it was a word worth remembering. She stared at him. "Why?" she asked. Her voice was dry, like dust. "Why help me?" Daniel looked into her eyes. "Because they treat you like you're nothing. But I see you. I see you're still alive, still fighting." Valari looked down. "No one saves people like me." "I do," he said. Then he stood and looked around. "There's a small vent behind this wall. In 3 days I'll return. If you're ready, we go. But if you tell anyone, if you doubt, he'll kill you, understand?" She nodded once. He placed another piece of bread in her lap, then vanished into the shadows. Valari didn't eat it right away. Her heart was racing. Was this real? Was he real? Or was this a cruel dream? But the warmth in her chest told her hope had returned. Daniel moved like a shadow through the facility. He copied codes, downloaded maps, and sent encrypted messages to the nearest human base. He marked the weak points of the gate, learned the guards' shifts, and calculated how much time he would have to move. 3 minutes. That's all he would get. But even that might be too long, especially if they were caught. Back in her cell, Valari did something she hadn't done in years. She stood without shaking. She washed her face with old water. She whispered her name again and again to herself, as if trying to remember she had once been a person. The other slaves looked at her, differently now. She didn't seem broken anymore, she seemed dangerous. 2 days passed. On the 3rd night Daniel returned. Valari was ready. She had no shoes, no protection, but she was standing tall, eyes full of fire. Daniel didn't smile, he just nodded. They didn't speak, they just moved. Through the vent, past the old boiler room, across a metal bridge above lava pits. Her legs burned with pain, but she never stopped. She had lived in chains for 15 years, what was 5 more minutes of pain? But then, alarms. Sirens screamed. Someone had noticed. Guards shouted behind them. The escape tunnel was almost in reach. Valari stumbled. Daniel grabbed her, threw her, over his shoulder and ran. "Don't stop," she cried. "I'm not," he said through gritted teeth. They burst through a final door and came face to face with 3 guards, guns raised. Valari screamed. But Daniel didn't slow. Blasters pointed at them. 3 guards blocked the way, heavy armor, no mercy in their eyes. Valari felt her breath stop. She had seen people shot for far less than this, but Daniel didn't hesitate. He dropped low, spun around, and fired a small shock device from his belt. 1 guard collapsed, twitching. The other 2 shouted, but Daniel was already moving fast and sharp. He dropped Valari behind a stack of metal crates and jumped into the fight. His fist smashed 1 guard's mask, shattering glass. The 3rd raised his weapon. Too slow. Daniel grabbed the barrel and slammed it into the wall. A blast went off, scorching the metal beside his face. Heat burned his cheek, but he didn't stop. With a final kick, the last guard went down, groaning. Valari stared, heart pounding. This human wasn't just kind. He was dangerous. He was fighting for her. Daniel ran back to her and grabbed her hand. "Let's go." They sprinted through the final hallway. Smoke filled the air now. Alarms screamed, lights blinked red. Footsteps echoed behind them. More guards were coming. They reached the outer gate. It was locked. Daniel cursed under his breath and slammed a small device onto the control pad. Sparks flew. Valari watched in panic. "They're coming!" No," Daniel replied, working fast. "Just 1 more second." A warning shot hit the wall beside them, then another. The Baron's voice echoed through the speakers. "You're throwing your life away for a worthless thing, human." Daniel ignored him. The gate finally opened with a heavy groan. "Move!" They ran into the open night. For the first time in 15 years, Valari saw the stars without bars in front of them, but they weren't safe yet. The outside world was no better. Fire burned in the trash fields. The mine's smoke towers spit ash into the sky. A black truck waited far ahead, Daniel's emergency transport. He grabbed Valari again and ran. Behind them, guards poured from the gates. Some had guns. Others rode hoverbikes. The chase began. Daniel shoved Valari into the truck and jumped into the driver's seat. Engines roared as the truck sped across the rocky terrain. Bullets whizzed past. A tire exploded, but the vehicle kept moving. Valari held on tight. Her whole body shook. Not from fear. This was something else. Freedom. It hurt. It was loud. It was bloody. But it was real. Daniel looked into the mirror. "They're not giving up." "What do we do?" she asked, voice trembling. "I need a clear line," he muttered. He turned the wheel sharply. The truck jumped over a broken hill. A hoverbike chased close. A guard reached for a weapon. Daniel handed Valari a small button. "What's this?" "Push it." She pushed. Behind them, a loud boom ripped through the night. A minefield Daniel had said earlier exploded beneath the hoverbike. Fire lit the sky. 2 more bikes backed off. Valari stared at the blast. "You planned all this?" He didn't answer. He just drove faster. Hours passed before they reached the hidden base, a small station buried under old desert stone. It had once belonged to smugglers, now used by rescuers like Daniel. The truck rolled into the underground tunnel and stopped. Daniel jumped out and helped Valari down. Her legs gave out. "I can't walk," she whispered. He didn't wait. He lifted her in his arms and carried her inside. Doctors rushed to them. One scanned Valari's body and gasped. 15 years of abuse, how is she even alive? Daniel didn't reply. He sat beside her, watching as they treated her wounds. Her body was weak, but her eyes were strong. She was fighting to stay awake, to stay alive. Later, as she lay wrapped in clean sheets warm for the first time in her memory, Valari turned her head toward him. "You didn't have to save me," she said quietly. Daniel's face was tired, dirty, burned, but his eyes were calm. "I couldn't walk away." "Why?" she asked. He hesitated. Then he spoke. "Because I've seen too much suffering in this galaxy. And every time I saw someone like you, I always said, next time, I'll help. But I never did." His voice broke slightly. "You were my next time." Valari stared at him for a long moment. She didn't cry. She just nodded. And for the first time in 15 years, She fell asleep without fear. Baron Kresul stood at the shattered gate, flames dancing behind him, a deep frown on his face. His finest guards lay broken, one still screaming, others unconscious. His prized possession, Valari, was gone, and a human had done it. Not just stolen her, but made him look weak before the entire mine. He clenched his fists, claws digging into his palms. "Bring me the overseer," he growled. Moments later, the head of security arrived, shaking. "Sir, the human had help. A hidden base. Explosives planted days ago." "I don't care how he did it," the Baron shouted, grabbing the overseer by the neck. "Find them. I want her back, and I want him chained beside her." Across the desert, Daniel kept watch inside the hidden base. Valari was asleep again, breathing slow, her body finally responding to the medicine. Doctors had done what they could, but the rest would take time. Bones needed to regrow. Muscles needed to be rebuilt. But her spirit, that had started healing already. Still, Daniel knew they weren't safe. The Baron would not stay silent. That night, he contacted the rescue command ship. "I've extracted the subject. Medical support successful. Request full asylum approval for her under human protection." The voice replied, "Approved, but you must stay hidden. Kresul is pulling favors. He's already bribed local patrols. We have reason to believe he'll strike within days." Daniel didn't flinch. Let him come. The next morning, Valari woke up slowly. The pain was less, her vision clearer. She looked around, confused. "Where are we?" Daniel smiled gently. "Safe. Underground base. Hidden for now." She sat up with effort, her arms shaking. "You stayed. I said I would." She looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Why do you keep looking at me like that?" He paused, then said, "Because I keep trying to imagine how someone survived all that, and still has light left in her eyes." Valari looked away, silent. She didn't know how to answer that. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the base. Daniel jumped to his feet. One of the screens showed movement outside. Too many heat signatures. "Kresul," he muttered. The base shook. A blast had hit the outer gate. Valari's heart pounded. "They found us?" "Yes. And they came prepared." Daniel pulled out a case. Inside were weapons, gadgets, and a small communicator. He turned to Valari. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though unsure. "I'll try. Then stay with me. We'll get out another way." Another explosion hit. The lights flickered. Smoke crept into the tunnels. They moved quickly. Daniel supported Valari as they passed dark corridors. Distant gunfire echoed behind them, guards sweeping the base. Valari's breathing grew harder. "I'm slowing you down." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You're the reason I'm moving." Suddenly, a figure appeared. At the end of the hallway, one of Kresul's hunters, massive, armored, and fast. Daniel raised his gun and fired, but the hunter dodged and charged. Daniel tackled Valari to the side as the hunter crashed into the wall behind them. The force knocked them both down. Valari hit the floor hard. Pain shot through her leg. The hunter turned slowly, growling. Daniel stood again, blood on his face. He pulled a grenade from his belt, twisted the top, and threw it. "Close your eyes." Valari obeyed. A blinding flash filled the tunnel. The hunter roared in pain, blinded. Daniel grabbed Valari and ran again. They reached a metal hatch near the far end of the base. Daniel punched in a code. "Come on. Come on." The hatch opened. They climbed into a narrow shaft. It led upward, a tight escape tunnel through rock. Behind them, the hunter recovered. Shots fired. Sparks flew. One grazed Daniel's shoulder. He groaned but kept going. They emerged in a cave above the valley, outside, at last. Daniel pulled out a flare and launched it high into the air. Seconds later, a small ship descended from the clouds, hovering just above the ridge. The human rescue crew had come. A ramp dropped down. Soldiers helped Valari up. Daniel followed last, barely standing. Inside, the ship rose into the sky. Below, Baron Kreisel reached the cave just as the ship vanished. He screamed in rage. The girl was gone again, and this time, she had wings. The rescue ship roared through the sky, engines burning bright as it climbed higher into the atmosphere. Inside, Valari sat strapped to a soft chair, wrapped in warm blankets, her body still trembling, not from cold, but from everything that had just happened. Her chest rose and fell too fast, her heart unsure whether it was safe to believe this was real. Daniel sat across from her, his shoulder bleeding through a bandage. He said nothing, just watched her quietly, like always, his eyes steady, never judging. There was fire outside the window, the ship's hull heating as they broke through the upper air layer. For a brief moment, Valari thought it looked like the whole world below was burning. Maybe it was. "Drink this," one of the medics said, handing her a small silver cup. The liquid inside was warm and sweet. She took a sip. Her body relaxed almost instantly. "You're safe now," the medic added kindly. But Valari wasn't sure. Safe was not something she understood. 15 years of pain had taught her to be ready for betrayal at any second. Still, the pain in her limbs had faded a little. Her breathing was easier. She could sit without collapsing. She even managed a whisper. "Where are we going?" Daniel answered. "To Haven 7, a human space station. Refugees, survivors, wounded, all welcome there." "And me?" she asked. "You're not a slave anymore," he said, his voice calm. "You're protected by human law now. You're free, Valari." The word echoed in her ears. Free. She tried to say it back, but her voice cracked. Daniel leaned forward. "Do you want to start over?" She looked at him for a long time. "Yes," she said, "but I don't know how." "You don't have to know yet," he said. "You just have to take the first step." Hours later, the ship landed on a platform floating high above a glowing human colony. Haven 7 was bright, peaceful, very different from the mines she had known. Clean air flowed inside. People smiled at each other. Children ran through halls without fear. As Daniel walked beside her, supporting her gently, Valari's eyes widened. "No chains, no guards on and no whips, no masters," Daniel added. "Only choices." She didn't know where to look. It was all too big, too kind. Inside the station, officials greeted them. Medical teams took her in for deep scans. Her name was added to the protection registry. She was given a real room, her own. It had a bed, light, and a door she could lock or unlock by herself. Daniel checked in once the room was ready. She sat on the bed, holding a clean towel in her hands, like it was treasure. "Tomorrow you'll meet a counselor," he said. "They'll help you talk about anything, help you heal." Valari didn't respond. She looked down at her fingers, still shaky. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why me? Out of all the slaves in that mine, why save me?" Daniel leaned against the doorway, his face tired but honest. "I saw your eyes. Even chained, they were full of fight. You hadn't given up. That's rare. Most people stop hoping. You didn't. And I couldn't walk past you and pretend I didn't see that." Valari blinked slowly. "I almost gave up, but then I saw you," she whispered. Silence passed between them like a quiet truth. He gave a small nod. "Rest now. You're safe here. I'll be nearby." He stepped out and let the door close. But peace never came so easily. Far across the galaxy, Baron Kreisel wasn't done. He had money, power, and pride, and losing Valari had wounded all three. That night, he stood in front of a dark screen speaking to someone in a deep and hidden part of the universe. "I want her found," he snarled. "No matter what it costs. The human, too." The voice replied, "Even on a protected station? That would mean war." "I don't care," Kreisel growled. "She was mine." And with that, he sent out the order. A team of bounty hunters left immediately, fast, ruthless, and already halfway to Haven 7. Back on the station, Valari dreamed for the first time in years. In her dream, she wasn't bleeding. She wasn't tied up. She wasn't begging. She was standing under alien stars, holding hands with someone who told her she mattered. And this time she believed him. Haven 7 sparkled under the stars like a silver flower blooming in space. It was meant to be safe. No weapons, no war, no slavery. But deep inside the quiet walls, trouble was moving closer. Valari had spent a full week on the station. Her body was healing fast with human medicine. Every day she woke in a soft bed. Every evening, someone brought warm food. And every night she sat by the window staring at the stars, trying to believe that she was truly free. Daniel visited her often. He never pushed her to speak, but always asked gently if she wanted to walk or talk or just sit. She always said, yes, but he was worried. Something had changed in the air. He noticed more patrols, more scans, whispers among the security officers. Then one night while Valari was sleeping, Daniel received a message on his secure line. Bounty confirmed. 5 million credits for the live capture of Valari. Posted by Baron Krazul. Wanted immediately. All hunters approved. Daniel's face went cold. They had come for her. The next day, Valari was walking with him through the station gardens when she saw it. A poster flashed on a screen wall. Her face, her eyes, but not her name. Below it were the words, Wanted, dangerous property. Return for reward. She froze. People walked by without noticing, but she couldn't breathe. Daniel pulled her away and guided her back to her room. Inside, she fell to the floor. They're going to take me back. No, Daniel said firmly, not while I'm alive. But they have bounty hunters. They won't stop. Then I won't stop either. She looked up at him, tears on her cheeks. They'll kill you. He knelt beside her. I've faced worse. You're not property. Not anymore, not ever again. Her hands trembled. What do we do? Daniel stood. We prepare. That night, Haven 7's outer alarm rang for the first time in 5 years. A foreign ship had docked without permission. It was small, fast, and illegal. Security teams responded, but too late. The bounty hunters were already inside. 5 of them. All species from the black markets. Fast, silent, brutal. They split up through the station, each holding a scan image of Valari's face. One moved through the medical wing. Another passed through the garden path. The leader, a tall creature, in black armor, walked directly toward the refugee hall, toward Valari's room. Daniel knew they would come. He was waiting. Valari sat on her bed, a small emergency bag in her lap. She had packed it herself, clothes, ID papers, even a necklace Daniel had given her, a silver ring with her name on it. Her name, not a number. The lights dimmed suddenly. She stood. Then, boom. A wall across the hall exploded. Screams echoed. Valari's door flew open, and there stood one of the hunters. 4 eyes, no mouth, long arms holding stun ropes. He stepped forward. But before he could touch her, crack! A shock bolt hit him in the chest. Daniel rushed in, blaster drawn. Come with me, he shouted. Valari followed. Smoke filled the hall. More shots fired. They ran through emergency corridors as security lights blinked red. Daniel opened a locked chamber, one only officers knew about. Inside was a small escape pod. This is our way out, he said. It'll take us to a civilian cruiser waiting nearby. But this is your home, Valari whispered. He looked at her. You are my home now. Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded. They climbed into the pod. As the door sealed, a loud explosion shook the station again. Another hunter had breached the docking bay. Daniel hit launch. The pod blasted away from Haven 7, diving into the cold, void of space. Fire and smoke burned behind them. Valari pressed her forehead to the glass window, watching the station vanish in the distance. I never wanted anyone to suffer for me, she whispered. You didn't cause this, Daniel said. He did, and we'll make sure he never gets another chance. But far behind them, Baron Krizzul's ship floated in the shadows of an asteroid field. He watched their escape on a screen and smiled darkly. "Run all you want, little slave," he said coldly. "I always collect what's mine." And with a sharp snap of his fingers, his ship changed direction. The hunt wasn't over, it had just begun. The escape pod drifted through the stars, small and quiet, like a pebble in the middle of a great black sea. Inside, Valari sat strapped into her seat, her hands clenched tightly, heart pounding. She could still hear the alarms from Haven 7, still smell the smoke. Daniel sat beside her, eyes locked on the scanner screen. His jaw was tight. He knew what was coming. "The cruiser is 10 minutes away," he said calmly, but his voice was tense. "Once we reach it, you'll be safe." Valari looked at him. "And you?" He didn't answer, because he knew the truth. Krizzul wouldn't stop, and he was already close. The scanner beeped. A large red dot appeared behind them. Then another. Then 3 more. "Tracking ships," Daniel whispered. He sent his best. Valari's breath caught. "We can't outrun them." "No," Daniel said, turning to her. "But we can end this." He pulled open a small panel in the wall. Inside was a remote detonator, connected to explosives buried deep in the escape pod's core. He looked at her carefully. "This pod has a failsafe. If it's ever captured, the system can destroy it." Valari froze. "You're going to blow it up?" "I'm going to set a trap, but not for you." He pressed a code into the console and changed their course. Instead of heading straight for the cruiser, the pod curved into the shadow of a dead moon, a cold, abandoned rock floating between stars. "Krizzul will follow us in. He always wants to finish things himself," Daniel said. Valari grabbed his. "Anta, don't sacrifice yourself for me." "I'm not," he said softly. "I'm giving you a chance to live. Not hide, not run. Live." Tears ran down her cheeks. "Please, don't go alone." He smiled gently. "Then come with me." The pod landed quietly on the dark side of the moon. Daniel helped Valari out, carrying a pack of supplies and a small weapon case. They set up a beacon near a high ridge, where the incoming ships would detect it. Then they waited. The stars above were cold and silent, but the ground beneath them shook minutes later. Krizzul's warship arrived. It landed like a monster from the past, dark steel, fire-colored lights and roaring engines, and from it stepped the Baron himself. Armor heavy, cloak dragging across the dust, eyes burning with fury. He was followed by 4 hunters, all armed. "Valari," he called out into the darkness, "come back. Be what you were made to be." Daniel stepped out first, blaster in hand. "Calm. She's not yours." Krizzul laughed. "You're a fool, human. You think you've saved her? She will never be free. She's broken, useless. She belongs in chains." Valari stepped out from behind the rock. She wasn't hiding anymore. Her voice rose, strong and clear. "You're wrong." Krizzul's head turned slowly. His eyes narrowed. "You should have died in the mines." She took a step forward. "But I didn't. I survived. And now I'll never be silent again." Krizzul roared. "Kill them both!" The hunters raised their weapons, but Daniel pressed the remote. The ridge exploded in a wave of fire. 2 hunters flew backward, screaming. Daniel and Valari ran behind cover. Shots fired from both sides. Valari picked up a weapon from the fallen. Her hands shook, but she fired. A hunter dropped. Daniel moved like lightning. 1 shot, 1 fall. Only Krizzul remained. He walked through fire like a demon, growling. "You can't stop me." Valari stood up, walking forward, blood on her face, smoke in her eyes. "You're not a god," she said. "You're just a coward with power." He lunged at her, but Daniel stepped in, grabbed him and pulled a hidden blade from his belt, driving it deep into the Baron's chest. Krizzul gasped. "You were never strong," Daniel whispered. "You were just feared." With a final push, he fell. Krizzul's body hit the moon's surface, hard. It didn't move again. Silence. Smoke rose behind them. Valari stared at the lifeless figure. Her knees gave out, but Daniel caught her. "You're free," he whispered. She looked into his eyes. So are you. Later. Aboard the cruiser, Valari sat beside Daniel, his arm in a sling, her hands bandaged. But they were alive. The captain of the ship approached. We've sent word across the colonies. The bounty is gone, the Baron is dead, and the law now recognizes Valari as a person under full human protection. Valari smiled for the first time, real, full, warm. Thank you, she said. Daniel turned to her. What will you do now? She thought for a moment. Live, learn, heal, maybe even love. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Anyone in mind? She blushed, then smiled again. Yes,